Shakti, I know you knew I was coming live, right? Isn't that how that works? Let me see if I can play a little bit with pulp. Ooh, I don't like that. Hmm. What happened to all the colors? There used to be a better filter than this. Oh well, anyway. Welcome to my channel. My name is Lana Labonte, and if this is the first time you've been to my living room in this virtual space, I am here to uplift, inspire. Actually, let me start that again. I am here to support, uplift, inspire, and hopefully that empowers you to be the best version of you are meant to be. Through my inspired living, of course, because what I speak from is my personal experience. What I share is the wisdom that has been imparted to me through those experiences, because it takes the intellectual stuff. Ooh, I know about it. It's all up in the head. The integration into your life for you to embody it and be it. It doesn't become wisdom until you've actually applied it and worked through it a few times, right? Gonna take you higher. That's what this is all about. We are taking it to the next level. We are going to, what did I write down the other day? When we level up, we glow up. When we glow up, it's because we're leveling up. These are powerful times. We have just shifted nodes from, what was it, Taurus into Aries? That makes about sense. I'm not an astrologer. I can give you a whole list of people you should go and follow. For me, I just admire, because I've always been fascinated by all of the influences and the modalities and the tools that we have at our disposal to kind of interweave and connect the dots. I see patterns, but I receive my own intuitive guidance, my own downloads, as you could say. I tap into my higher self, I listen, I feel into it, I embody it. Because really, truly, the truth can only be felt. You cannot intellectualize what you must realize, not just with the eyes, but the five senses. Because when you tap into your senses, the five senses heighten your intuitiveness, your into me I see. You know, it's like, look, I see you. Actually, it's like, me, I see you through the third eye. So, I have a confession to make. I had a little bit of a, I don't know if anybody out there can relate to this. Please let me know if you can. Not just in the comments in the chat, but at the end, if you could put comments at the, it really helps the algorithm, by the way. And if you do like my content, make sure to like, subscribe, click the notification bell, because we need a little help, we need your mojo. We need your good vibes, your energy, sending my way too, just like I'm sending your way. Because it's receptivity, right? So I can show up, help you level up so you can glow up. I can inspire you through my inspired living. I can share with you all this stuff. But if I don't know, if I don't get feedback, whether it's an up, thumbs up, how am I going to know if it's working? So, you know, like, let's make this an interactive. Let's not just, okay, I watched her, I slid in, I slid out, she didn't know I was there. I want to know, what is it? What's your pain point? What is your point of surrender? What is it that scares the hell out of you? Because last night, with all these changes and all these shifts, I've been feeling all the feels. And some of it's intangible. Like, I know, for years I've known, you hear the echo, that's my gong. For years I've known and sensed when major changes are rippling. And it's not that it's about to happen. You're already in it. It's already happening. Like, when you make the choice to change, when you make the change in your routine, when you choose you, that's the bottom line. In the end, just between you and me, I choose you because it is me. When we make the conscious, aligned choice with our soul, because believe it or not, you may think you're making the choice, but what you're doing is aligning with your integrity, your heart and soul. That's your real inner guidance system, your inner compass. This meat suit, flesh suit, whatever you want to call it, This human body, it's a vessel. And you get to guide it and steer it. But you need to use the compass, the map, the tools. Everything that's available to you is you. Don't outsource. Don't be giving it out to anybody else and asking for advice. And what should I do? I mean, we have been conditioned and indoctrinated into a system that tells you you shouldn't trust yourself, that you shouldn't be able to tap into your truth, that you should actually trust in others before you trust yourself. This is where we are in the world, right? And because of that, so many people are very apprehensive. They hold themselves back. I'm one of them. I speak from my experience. I was thinking of you too. I put the call out to you. I'm like, she's going to know I'm going. When we want to affect change in our life, shift has to happen. You know what I mean? The ish. Sometimes it's the point of our breaking. Sometimes we actually have to get to that. If you've watched some of my previous videos, you get sick of your own shit and you just say, I'm done with this. Yeah. Ooh, that's an interesting name for a title. 𝐒𝐚𝐬𝐬𝐲. So we think we're making the choice, but the reality is, how you doing that way? We think we're making that choice, but what's really happening is there's an alignment, energetic alignment. You start to tap into your harmonics, your frequencies, your frequent keys. I was having a conversation earlier. Actually, no. This goes back to last night and this morning because I pulled an all-nighter, and I'll go back into that in a second. I was listening to a beautiful video with Pamela Gregory. I think that's her last name. She's an astrologer, and she was doing a talk with another woman. And they were speaking about the indigenous and how, and this is across different cultures, knowing your soul song. Shakti, you may know about this. And that when you can reconnect to your soul song, that can realign you to your path, your purpose, can heal you from the inside out. And sometimes it's you, because here's the thing, we think we need to go find all these healing modalities outside of ourselves. It's great for guidance. It's nice to get the feedback. We are each other's medicine. We are here to support each other, guiding each other through our frequencies, because when we connect with others, we are the codes that unlock each other's codes. We are the frequent keys unlocking the codes of each other. You know, the medicine. It's in the frequency, it's in the energy, it's the vibration, and we attract where we're at. And so when we can reconnect with our souls through our own song, it's our own humming, our vibration, our harmonics. Come on. The root of everything comes back to sound, comes back to the breath. Initially, it's always going to be the breath. Why? It's a sustainer, it's a life force, prana. You can't do anything without it, because before the word, God breathed life into you. I speak about this all the time. This is my interpretation. And my closest connection to source has been since I was a little girl, that this intuitively is just something it's in my being. It's interwoven into who I am, that I don't deny the naivete of that young child, that inner child within me, that grew up knowing we adults get a little too serious. We still need to find our way back to our play. That when we were children, and it was shamed out of us about how you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. And so you reject yourself because we reject you. And when you reject yourself, again, what you suppress will be expressed consciously or unconsciously. And so when we are shamed for our authenticity, our joy, our play, that's the one thing that suffocates the most, just like the prana. So at the root of everything is your breath. You cannot exist without it. So that prana needs to be harnessed. And with that prana, we create sound. We came into matter because of energy, vibration, sound at the root. And the B is the hum of the universe. The whole matrix, the whole womb, matrix means womb, people, is like the hive. That's why they talk about the hive mind. So there's so much depth to life, so much richness. We're only on the surface. But the more we're willing to dive deeper into it, the more will be revealed to us, for us, by us. We think we're finding some lost treasure, but in reality, we're just remembering. We're just reclaiming. It's all been there all along. It's a revelation. It's revealing what has been hidden under the veil. It's the unveiling. And so I am talking in circles. I am very well aware of that because there is so much vastness to all this. Where do I want to go with that? So spirit is the breath. When people talk about spirit, you need to be conscious of your breath. Yes, it is an automatic response of your body, just like your heart pumping and your blood and all that. There's all these microcosms within your macrocosm, you know, as within, so without, as within, so without, is so without, as within. We are like replicating. Mini-verse, universe. Uni means one. And again, universe, U-inverse, is song. And music, vibration, harmonics, create things into matter. So the U-inverse is you in harmony with your frequency, tuned in, tapped into your soul song. And that alignment, the more you come back to it in the presence, because it's in your presence, you find your essence, which is your personal power, soul self that exists right here, right now. It is the essence of your presence that affects the change and ripples out. Because in reality, we all want to be in our power. Anytime you're in the past, anytime you're jumping into the future, you are not here now. So what's happening is you're being fragmented, you're being hijacked, usually by your mind. And sometimes it's influence that causes that. So whenever you catch yourself being influenced by your mind, you have to check yourself and go, what was it that took me out of that? What was the word? What was the sensation? What was the memory it evoked? Because when something is evoked in you, it's kind of like you're being poked. Whatever is evoked was initially poked, but there's a root cause. It wasn't, there's a catalyst that caused you to regress what has been suppressed and needs to be expressed, needs to be revealed, unveiled, reclaimed. Because the power in the now is owning your past, present, future, here in now. We are not broken. We don't need to be fixed. This whole healing thing has got people distracted, constantly adding to the, I have to prove myself worthy. So everybody who's running around with this anxiety, frustration, depression, myself included, is grasping for seams, for threads, for something to give some semblance of I feel worthy, I am enough. That we were born into a world of, you know, what do they call that? Original sin, which is all the biggest lie, right? There's no such thing. It's interpretation. Something that dropped in early this morning, and I'm like, you know, it's so crazy. Think about this. If you're religious, you've heard, God made us in his image. I believe that. There's multi-facets, multi-variations and versions. There is no right or wrong unless you project your filters and your perception and all your belief systems and your stories and everything you've ever experienced. And then it's biased. But the truth of the matter is that your life is meant to be lived, not in shame, not in disgust, not in judgment. So much of the religions that I, grew up Catholic, it's this whole idea that judge is, God, Judgment Day, and God is an all-fearing God, and he's a jealous God, and all these things that make you fear some form of a bigger authority. But this is an interpretation of man. Supposedly God has made us in his image, yet man has made God in his image. Has anybody ever sat and recognized all the hypocrisy and all the lies? Because it comes from the word of men, women, what have you. Yeah, it's okay. You can love yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. That's the point. You should love all your parts. Most people are fragmented. They're not whole. It's not that you're unhealed or that you're broken. It's just that you've been shamed into thinking you should reject aspects of yourself that make you who you are, that make you unique and authentic. And we need more of that. We have way too much cookie cutter stuff going on. We need to fit into this box and need to fit in that box. And everybody's like, what the hell? Another Jedi mind trick to distract you from living your most beautiful, authentic life. You have. God created you in his image to live a life free of judgment by your fellow man, by your neighbors. To life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And whatever that should look like. But all these judgments, all these labels, cause us to question, distrust ourselves. And that's just where they like us to be. Because the more you distrust yourself, the more you don't know what is right or wrong, because you've got this one saying that one saying this, you're all like, which way do I go? Because you're outsourcing your power. When if you tap into your inner guidance system, your wisdom, your body's wisdom, because remember what I say, your body, it's pretty clever. It's got a lot of wisdom. It stores every memory in every cell of your body, every being. So when your mind is doing its little crazy hamster wheel run, the body's going, ooh, ah, because it recognizes it's a tattletale. It will tell on your mind, like, that's BS, belief systems. And everything has two meanings or more. Typically, let's say, because we live in a world of polarity and duality, everything is going to have two sides of a coin. Yes, I love that. You got to be playful. And so when someone says to you, you have to choose. No, you don't. You can be neutral. You can remain neutral. When you choose this or that, that is the trap. Neutrality is the key to walking the middle way. In the world, but not of it. Of the world, and not in it. In the world, but not of it. Meaning the non-attachment, if you watch my last video, there is going to be a form, like an aspect of attachment. You're never going to get rid of attachment. You're never going to get rid of the so-called ego. The ego is there to serve you. Attachment is part of your connection to this life. That's a great statement. If one does not know they are a god or a goddess, they will never be able to act like one. And you know what? And unless you've acknowledged that and understood what that means and feels like, and tap into the five senses, like this is the disconnect. There's so much escapism, so many people running away from themselves, not realizing you can't do that. I mean, wherever you go, there you are. It's always you. I mean, this whole grand scheme of things, they say, is that when in the end, it was always you. In the end, there is no separation. So these collective collaborations of individuality, of the God source, Godhead, whatever you want to call it, they're just expressions. And it's us who have made it so complicated. We have over-labeled, judged, compared ourselves to this unrealistic perfectionism, to this painted up story around this higher being that is really just you an aspect of us all, right? Exactly. Truth does not need a belief. It's either accepted or not. And even then, it doesn't even need defense. Truth does not need to be defended. It is what it is. You're going to see it. You're going to sense it. You're going to know it. If you trust yourself, you'll know your truth. And nothing can take you away from that. The only thing that catches us up is when we're in fear, when we're not acknowledging our resistance to what is. We're attached to what we want it to be and not seeing it for what it is. It's really that simple. And so, see if I can bring it back to where I started. My confession, other than the fact that I stayed up all night and I was deep in, this has been going on for a few days. So I am in a course to consolidate and package and create my business plan. And interestingly enough, it's not that I haven't got everything together. I got everything written down. I do this day in, day out. I take notes. I have a very systematic way of taking a daily journal, and I have a theme for each day, and I track my moon cycles. And I'm not talking about your moon cycle. I'm talking about the where your moon is, and there's 11 centers. Your moon center, not moon cycle. And so, all about you most beautiful in all creation itself. Exactly. And the moment we notice it, we notice there's a divine comedy in it all too. Because the cosmos, the universe, the U-inverse, and you can interpret that in so many ways. This is what I'm saying. Like, you got to look at words and see there are dual meanings to everything. U-inverse. Are you inverse or are you inverse? Are you tuned into your own song, your rhythm, your vibration? Are you aligned with your heart and soul? Because you'll know, you'll sense it. Everybody's speaking the truth or not. How about this one? It's like I said the other day. Most of the times, there's more in what's not said than what is said. It's up to you to learn to discern and to acknowledge and recognize and not try to make a story out of it or defend somebody else's story that you don't even know. So, the U-inverse, universe, U-inverse is all about you really, you, tapping into your song, tapping into your rhythm and aligning with your heart and soul. Because when you are on that path and you are strong in it, no wavering. I mean, you're going to shift, you're going to dance. I mean, that's what energy does. It moves, it flows, it ebbs, it's ups, it's downs, it's ins, it's outs. It's, woo, like, you have to learn to really, actually, it's not even that you have to learn, you have to remember. Because we just forgot. We have like amnesia going on. And so when you remember, you put your parts back together. That is putting the members of your wholeness back together. We are the only constant. Every so-called other thing comes and goes, and we are always. Exactly. Like I like to say, it's like you can say you're the victim of your circumstances or so-and-so did such and such, but if you notice the patterns in your life, you'll notice the one constant is you. So you really got to be humble. And remember what we say. You got one finger pointing out, you got three pointing right back at you, baby. And it's a loaded gun, so be careful where you point that, because it's also wielding, it's a wand. You are also casting spells with the words that you choose and the direction you focus them. Because remember what I say too, thoughts are the currency, right? You literally are paying for your experience with every thought you manifest. Because when you put the thoughts out there, direct it in whatever direction it's going, you're creating a frequency. It could be good or bad, whatever you want to label it. There is no good or bad. It's just your label of it. It's your resistance or acceptance of it. The coming or the going. How powerful is that? Like, when you recognize how powerful of a being you are, and then you harness the thoughts that drop in, hey Carl, as opposed to let them rule and run over you and run the show. This is why I say you need to master your breath, because when you slow it down and you get present with your breath, you become aware of your mind and the unconscious thoughts that keep rippling through, because it's all about being in awareness of what it is your program is. Your thoughts are simply conditions, stories, exposure to environments, biology of belief. You literally adopt other people's stories and put them into your life. Plug and play. I'll take that and I'll take that. Most of the beginning, your formative years, you didn't have a choice. It was just what you witnessed and thought that was normal. And it was conditioned into you what was right or acceptable or wrong and unacceptable. So children are taught to lie. The minute you're scolded for the very first time for doing something and you don't understand what was wrong about it, they're just telling you it was wrong. That's when you start to suppress, and that's when you learn to lie, because you don't want to feel the pain of that scolding ever again. And most of us are running from feeling the pain. We're numbing out the pain, and then we don't realize we've numbed out the joy. This is the addictive cycle, that when you numb the pain, you numb the joy, and they're equally a part of the whole. That for the pleasure, the joy that you experience in life, the reward is the pain that you get to feel as a result when it's done. You're not supposed to wallow in it, but it's an acknowledgement to celebrate how good that joy was, instead of saying, oh, woe is me, I missed that. That's attachment. That's a different form of attachment. We want to be in the world of not of it, but at the same time, we want to acknowledge the beauty of the highs and the lows, because that's what creates the whole show. That's what is at the root of why we are here, to have the experience, not to judge it and cry over spilled milk or whatever. And it's interesting because we spend so much of our life going through this struggle, strife, resistance, only to realize, wow, I didn't need to go through all that. Boy, my mind is so clever, it created this whole drama. I'm a Leo, I can deal with the drama one way or the other. I don't really particularly care for the unnecessary drama. I like the playful drama, where you get to dance and sing, put on a new hat or a costume and pretend you're someone else. I mean, this is life. You get to be whoever you want to be. You get to choose to be the main attraction, the star of your own show, or you can choose to participate in other people's movies. Great example. Gossip is the perfect example of unnecessary drama, because you're contributing to someone else's life by talking about them. And again, when I go back to, in the end, it's always going to be you. So if you think that there's just one of us having a full experience through these different aspects of ourselves, every time you judge another, you're judging yourself. It's a projection, because you wouldn't come up with a judgment if you weren't comparing yourself to the situation or the person. So we always have to kind of like, all right, why am I feeling this way? Where am I feeling it in my body? What was it that invoked it? What poked me? What created the pain? It's not in the moment. Although in the moment you are feeling the pain as if you are re-experiencing every example, every time in your life you had pain. Because that's how that works. So in our past, there's a root pain, and all other pain just stems from that point. And because we didn't know any better back then, we didn't have the tools to heal it, to reclaim it, to not let it take us out or suppress an aspect of ourselves. We will continue to play out these different painful experiences until we're poked enough to where we get back to that root origin pain. Isn't that crazy? That really, there's only one pain in your life that you're either running from or towards. And even pleasure can be considered a form of pain. We could go deeper down that rabbit hole, but let me take a drink because it's a lot to talk. Mm. Mm. All right, we have nettle, stinging nettles, gynostemma, licorice root, elderberries, and rosemary. And it's nice and cold because it's been really hot here in Florida. So back to the confession, because I know I'll circle back. This is just how I talk, and it's just how it comes through, because I wasn't quite sure how this was going to unfold. I've been struggling with myself. I've been kind of ornery. This human suit, this human being has been quite ornery lately. Excuse me. When I say ornery, remembering that I'm a Leo, but yet I do have a Libra balance, so I have a little bit of that people pleaser in me, because I like to keep the peace, make sure everybody's taken care of in a healthy way. So, and I've dealt with authority figures in my past. I don't like being told what to do. Now imagine the irony that I'm saying I don't like authority and someone telling me what to do. And I'm over here having conversations with myself because I'm my best conversationalist. And I have some pretty damn good conversations, and I call my shit out on myself. I'm like over here going, come on now, really? We're back here again. And I know you don't like to be told what to do, but here I am having to try to steer you to do what you need to do. And you've been putting it off. And so I'm like going through this whole dialogue around my resistance to doing what I always do. And that's the crazy part, is the whole time, I basically, last night, I'm like, I've got to push myself to do this. I need to discipline myself better in certain aspects. I am calling myself out on that. I have to be my own accountability buddy. Like, sometimes I just don't have someone to do that for me. And it used to be my mom. I could pick up the phone and have a conversation and I would hear. That's why speaking out loud is the best way to hear your own words, to evaluate, just like meditation. But instead of hearing them process through your head to see the unconscious, you're actually having a dialogue with those thoughts. So that when you notice you're doing the distraction dance, right? Shuffling around the house, going from this to that, finding little things that need to be done just because you don't want to do that. I literally laid out all my paperwork. I put all the modules that I'm working on right now on the floor. Put my iPad on the floor. I've got my heart bowl next to me. I'm striking my gong. I'm going in the other room. I'm making up something to drink. I'm going through and I'm processing and trying to evaluate. I printed out all the papers that I'd already put together. And I'm talking to myself like, there you go. You're so good. So good at distracting yourself. Finding other things to do rather than the thing you know you need to do. Hey, if I don't out myself for myself, nobody's going to do it for me. I'm not saying I need to have, that I can't have someone help. And I'm not trying to do everything by myself. But the one thing and the one theme that has rung through for the past, especially really, really strong the past few years, on top of which it's been my entire life theme. Because while I've been writing my book, and every time I write down more stuff, more entries, I'm seeing the theme. And that's the reason I need to write the book and have been doing it, is because there's a common thread. There's a common theme. And this particular theme is also one of my core wounds. It's the people who overpromise, underdeliver, or don't even deliver. The people I've done for and don't reciprocate, it's being dropped. It's literally like, oh, I'll take care of you, talk you up. I've got your back. I've got you. And the next thing I know, they've disappeared. There's nowhere to be found. And they definitely are not following through, because I'm over here with my hands going, this is like a gesticulation in Italy, means empty-handed, okay? It's like, what the hell? What, I'm grasping for something and there's nothing. And that's been very painful. It's been hurtful for my heart. And especially in the past year and a half since I had my breast explant, because it was a huge epiphany for me, how tender my heart was underneath those implants, that it was literally a shield protecting me from feeling fully. And I tell you right now, I feel shit. So the idea that I wasn't feeling fully doesn't make any sense, right? Like, you're like, I am so sensitive and attentive and intuitive, but then you take those things off and all of a sudden it's like, I was a hot mess last year. I still have my moments, but last year it was like, ugh, holy shit. And there were times I felt like my heart had been stabbed by people I had loved and trusted and never expected to hurt me or harm me, whether it was an intentional thing or unintentional, conscious or unconscious. You cannot make people do things for you or be something you want them to be when they're unwilling or unable to show up. And majority of the time, they don't show up for themselves. They're not going to be able to show up for you. So what do you think? And part of that is also me confronting, because I am that person who shows up for other people. I hold myself to a certain standard. So if I'm able to show up for other people, why is it so challenging for me to receive people in the same way? Reciprocation. To me, that's a healthy relationship, is when someone does good for you, it's good favor to reinforce that favor with good behavior and reinforcement. So someone does something good. This is actually just an old, wise hand-me-down. I don't know that it ever needed to be spoken, but it was the way that I was raised, is that someone has done something really nice for you. You want them to feel appreciated, because when you do that, they'll do more of that. It's the gratitude factor. It's when you are grateful for something, you draw more of that to you. When you're bitch moaning and groaning about something, you're going to bring more of that too. And so this reciprocity, the law of reciprocity, if you don't do for others what has been done for you, it will end, because it shows you don't value that other person, but that's probably because you don't value yourself. So it's more challenging for people to give what they don't give to themselves. And I, to a certain degree, also had to confront how much of am I doing it for myself, that I had to not shut down, but close doors, so that my door wasn't drafty and I wasn't leaking more energy in the wrong direction. And so by acknowledging that I was holding out, I was attached and had an expectation that what I gave I would receive in return in some way, shape, or form. We also have to be humble enough to eat our own manipulative pie. Now, it's sometimes so subtle, and especially with somebody who lives in a victimhood mentality, that, well, I just keep giving and giving and giving. And it's like, are you doing it for the right reasons? Are you acknowledging that person is valuing you, or you're doing it to avoid rejection? Yeah, breasts are to nurture. And it's also, for women, it's our second arc line. You know, this is why we're so sensitive, because this is the heart and the nipples, and you feel your environment. It's not up in here. We feel from the space. I also believe the heart is the seat of the soul, but that's just me. People say it's in the pineal gland and all that, but I always believed it was the heart. And I'm just a Leo in the heart, you know, sun rules the heart and all that. Courage, love, right? And so reciprocity. We have to check ourselves. We have to check our motivation, our own agendas, our own drivers. What's driving you? Are you conscious of it? This is why we meditate. This is why we breathe and we slow down. Because if you're not conscious of something, it will be the unconscious driver of your life. And then you will continue to see those patterns. But unless you're willing, and I don't mean like, you can't be dismissing your shit. The more you think you can hide behind, oh, nobody will see my stuff, the more your shit shows. I can say that a million times, right? The more you think your shit doesn't show, the more shit show you're showing. That everybody sees it but you. It's cognitive dissonance. It's literally like a little kid who's like, you don't see me when you lift the blankets. Well, yeah, I do see you. I see you a lot more clearly than you're willing to see yourself. And so, again, I go back to my story of like, I'm over here going, I have to be accountable to myself right now. That's the stage I'm in my life. And by being accountable to myself, it means sharing my gifts with the world and being a lifestyle designer, a coach, a mentor, a guide, sharing life experience. Somebody who can hold that sacred space. I do this. This is what I do. I do it on a daily basis. I do it even in my sleep. That, interestingly, I need to also do that for me. So I have slowed down over the course of many years and recognizing, oh my gosh, I was a runner, figuratively and physically. I used to run long distance. I used to run marathons. I loved running. Running was my meditation emotion until my body started to go, hell no. And you know what? The truth is when you give, it should come from your heart with no strings attached. You know there are strings attached when you get upset because you got a tally of all the times you gave. And that's for the wrong reason. And that's the type of unhealthy attachment and expectation that many people don't realize they're operating from. And so, okay, here I am. I'm having this conversation with myself. And I've recognized for the times I've felt dropped, it's up to me to lay a foundation of accountability that I am the one who is showing up to serve. So I will set the foundation to establish that I am the best space holder and that I attract the people who need what I am serving, as opposed to showing up and serving people that maybe I was serving for the wrong reasons. For example, I will say that, I have had many lives in this one life already. I was in the military. I worked in government contracting. I was a professional. I was making very good money in Europe. The last thing I wanted was to come back to the United States. I was happy in Italy. And when my world came crashing down because everything just continually kept getting more toxic. And that's something I was sharing with a friend the other night about how when your life outside of you becomes so toxic, your professional life, your intimate life, everything around you is toxic, that means something inside of you is in serious dis-ease. There's toxicity. It is time to detoxify yourself, to eliminate whatever the parasite is. And it's, again, going back to that root cause of pain, the unhealed trauma, the rejected aspects of yourself, the shame and the guilt that you still feel and carry that attracts more people and situations to where you feel like you're on the defense. Like, that was one of my things when I was younger, is defending myself when I didn't need to. And as a result, what do people do when someone is defensive? They use it against you. Even something minuscule or mundane or nothing. Like, it's unbelievable how many toxic people there are out there that hurt people. And any opportunity they see to use someone else's disempowering, they disempower others by using the trust that you may have expressed by revealing some wound, because that's actually disgusting. When you use someone else's trauma, their insecurity, or their vulnerability, when they reveal themselves and say, this hurts me, and would you please not do that? And then they turn around and they take that poker and they turn it and make it, more salt in the wound. Let's just stick the poker, that real hot poker stick, in there deeper. That's actually just a reflection of how much hurt they have on the outside to direct hurt toward another. And because they're so hurt and so deep in their own shit, they don't know how to uplift others. They only know to take them down and try to drag them into their misery and their pain. Because for some reason they think that if I can make someone else feel as bad as I do, then it's not so bad. It validates their pain. It makes them feel better, because if you're lower than them, they feel like they got it better. But the irony is the more we lift each other up and we rise together, the lighter we feel, the less pain. This is where we need to really change things in the world. Like, if you don't start working on you to feel better and uplift others around yourself, you're just going to keep on going down into those pits of despair. But we're here to live fully, not to be stuck in the past or chained to some root trauma, pain that we're still running from. Because the more you're running from it, it's like having that, what is that thing called? Shackles on your ankles and running at the same time. You think of the poor elephants that have that shackle around their ankle. They're much stronger than those shackles. But because they basically train them at a very young age, they don't understand their strength. And we're no different. So when you disempower someone and say that's not possible at a very young age, and they keep hearing the same thing over and over and over again, it tends to make the person feel imprisoned by that, because that's what this is part of the psychological mindfuck. When someone says to you, when you're very young and impressionable, oh, that's horrible, you're never going to do that. Don't even think about doing that. That's not reasonable. That's not what we do. Or the person just shrinks. They get smaller. And the more and more that gets reinforced and told to them about, this is what you should do. Don't even think about that. And then they suppress it. And then there's this repression of this pain. And then they're like, they grow up. I mean, because many of us hit a point when we get older, we go, man, I'm just not happy. And it's because you haven't been living your authentic life. You haven't been in your authenticity. You've been living the script that was handed to you based on the shaming of who you truly are at the core. And so it's, again, the reclaiming, the remembering, to putting the parts back to your wholeness. But you have to acknowledge it first, and you have to go through that grieving process. You have to understand you didn't know any better. You were just in survival mode, trying to be able to, you were trying to fulfill those human needs, because you didn't want to have love withheld from you, to be abandoned, rejected. You needed connection. That is normal for us humans. That's part of the whole purpose of us being here, is we are here to connect with one another, heart-to-heart coherence. And so here I am, back to my story. Here I am having these conversations with myself. I'm like, everything you know you need to do, you're avoiding. Come on, this is getting ridiculous. And I went through the stories of how, just like the disempowerment of the child, when you tell the child they shouldn't do this, they can't make a living off of that. Like, I was an artist when I was a kid. I was a writer. I wanted to be an actress, a model. I did a little bit of everything, all of it. I went into computers. That's my jam. A total geek over here. But at the same time, I got sick of computers. I wanted to start doing retreats years ago. And something in me was afraid that I didn't know what I was doing. I was overthinking it. I am that person that's like, if it's not perfect, you know, perfectionism, I'm still recovering. If it's not just right, I'm afraid that I'm going to fail. But that's not the truth, and I know that. Because anytime I've ever set out to do something, I've learned from any mistake and recuperated and course corrected. But some of the stories that were running through my mind last night were like, or this morning, how much I put in to social media, especially in 2017, because that was when I was initially launching my first retreat, okay? My first retreat, Italy. An ecstatic awakening under the Tuscan sun. And I was so excited about it. And because I didn't have enough people for the retreat, and then I met my social media partner, Carl knows who I'm talking about, and we started collaborating. I had literally sat on my floor and prayed in my meditation for somebody to come and work with me, to support me and help me, because that's what I do. And it's nice to get that back, because that's what I do. I hold space. I'm the person that people come to, and I needed that in return. Why do you think I do what I do? It's because that's what I have always needed. And that's typically our pain point. Like, that's where we find our passion, is what is it you yourself really needed in your life that you had to go figure out a way to get it. We're not talking survival skill, but maybe you had to go find a way to work through something. And so this partner came in, and I saw the signs, but I rejected them. I created a story around them. Oh no, that's not what I'm seeing. You know, like all the, something feels off. Invited him down here to stay with me, to live with me in my home. And I was depleted of my energy as a result of allowing someone into my home who was not healthy, who was not contributing, wasn't paying for anything. And interestingly enough, it turned into, let's see, so 2 years of a power struggle where we were supposed to be collaborating, but all I felt like it was this constant competition, and that really depleted my mojo, my energy, my life force. Despite all the things that I was doing, like I was doing a lot. I can tell you, there are times I don't want to get out of bed, because that was so exhausting, mentally, emotionally, physically. I'm going to tell you, if you've never been in a narcissistic relationship, if you see the warning signs, turn around and walk away. Run. Because the reality is, they're never happy. They will never admit they're wrong. They will turn everything around on you. They will flip the script. And even when I saw it and called it out, it would turn into something, it was like, I don't have time and energy to waste arguing with somebody. In fact, one of the conversations I had was, I didn't have any drama before you showed up. My house, my life, everything was pretty damn good without you. Boy, that shut him up real quick. Drink. And so these are kind of like reflective stories that I sat with last night. Like, oh, shit. Because I worked my ass off to build Ridiculously Authentic, okay? I'm not harping on the story. I'm just, to build a social media following of over 50,000 people in the group when it was easy back then. It was easier, I say, okay? And then the page and the YouTube, and he sabotaged everything. Anytime I disagreed with him, it was like pulling the rug out from underneath me, like literally taking all administrative control away from me, because he didn't have any control over anything else. That was the only semblance of control he had in his life. And even then, he didn't even do that as well as he claimed. And then he acted like he was doing me the favor, that he was doing everything for me, but took everything away in the end. Oh, I promise I'll never take anything from you. It's equally yours. Yeah, he took the group. He took anything that would monetize. He would have taken the page had I not already had the admin access to it. But as a result, I lost my original first Facebook account because he was like he did crazy stuff. I lost it twice, actually. The first time was right before my mom passed. And I had to deal with that shit too. See, that was exhausting in the 2 years as well, is to lose a parent and also have to deal with a man-child at the same time. I'm like, I don't have time for this shit. It depleted me. And I had placed so much of my energy into doing what I did because I really believed in it, only to have it taken from me anyway. So at the very end, I knew, I was like, you know what? I don't care. Take the group, because it's not like I could force him to give it back to me anyway. He only took what he thought he could benefit from, which is interesting, isn't it? He also stayed with me because that was a benefit to him. But he didn't give back. He left me with more of a mess to clean up than anything. And the dog in the end chose me because, you know, the dog had a good life until last year. So that had been my challenge. And I really faced that last night. I'm like, you think because you put so much into what you've already done. I lost 2 Facebook accounts. I lost an Instagram account. On top of all this stuff that I went through with him, I had to deal with a psychotic vet clinic where the owner, where I confronted them about their negligence on my dog, came after my social media. I'm like, who the hell does this stuff? Yeah. And I'm like, I'm not only going through this body image change, which I was pretty comfortable with that, even with the discomfort. I was okay with feeling what I was feeling. But then to lose Buddy and then have to deal with the psychotic vet on top of that, like, and then to attack my mental health over all of it when it's like, ooh, we know we got a psychotic individual when they're attacking your health to cover up for their malpractice. So, and the thing is I didn't realize it because I was on my travels. I was traveling in Europe and I was documenting my trip and I was trying to unwind and like refill my cup. I had a great time, but it wasn't until that last week in October that I lost my accounts. My original Instagram, which was, everything was organic. I felt like I was finally reaching people. And all of a sudden, once again, the rug was pulled out from underneath me. I'm like, how many times I'm going to have to be the phoenix rising from the ashes over here? Just saying, Mom. Literally, I'm not asking for sympathy on this. I'm just trying to expose that no matter what you've been through, as much as I'm sharing the story, I've had to confront the story and say that doesn't mean it's going to keep happening. Because when your mission is so freaking intense and powerful and big, there are some forces that will try to take you out. It's up to you to be stoic and face the fear anyway. Because despite all that has happened, and I am still in dispute with that silly vet situation. I'm still kind of like depressed dealing with that aspect. And that's part of what kind of made me feel really, really heavy in the past year, is the heaviness of having to still deal with something unresolved. And I thought by now I would have had it resolved. But trying to get people to do the right thing, especially when money's involved, shows their true colors in the end. So, social media. I had my appendix removed as a result of the physical ailments on top of all that. That's what got me to the point where I'm like, he's got to go. So I kicked his ass out, started rebuilding myself and getting back to my nature, into my pattern, my routine. Felt much better. Took a while. Was reclaiming my energy, my mojo, trying to get healthy again. Had to change my diet. I've had to make a lot of significant changes in my life. All the better. Major life changes also are like death. And so you have to acknowledge when you're grieving. And I've had to acknowledge that so much over the past several years. Like waves. You got mini deaths and you got major deaths. Life change in itself. And then when you've got all those big changes happen at once, it's like, Whoa, holy moly. Okay. Well, it doesn't kill you, makes you stronger. You're still here. You're pretty damn strong. That shows how resilient you are. This is me in the mirror with myself. You're still here. And the universe, God, source, is not going to let you fail. You've made it this far. This is the conversation I'm having with myself this morning. And so I'm over here going, okay, so we had appendicitis, ended up in the hospital, didn't want to come home, had 2 weeks in the hospital. And then when I did come home, we started with the altercations and he actually started trying to get physical. And I'll tell you right now, twice was enough. And I called in, that's when I kicked his ass out. And then on top of that, the situation with trying to recover my social media. And really that was in itself a loss, because I had already connected with so many people and then lost them all because I lost my first account, which was really powerful. I had a good following. And you know, people don't know on social media if you disappeared or you unfriended them, because the pattern that we had was this individual that I was partners with, he would go in there and just unfriend or block people just randomly for whatever his reason was. He'd say he was trying to protect me too. The first time I lost my account though, because I go through personal experiences like these, so I can understand from an addictive perspective the influence and impact of social media upon people psychologically, because I went through it. So I know it firsthand. And I can understand when other people are going through something of that nature, of a change that strongly influences and impacts their life. And they may not notice it. So the first time I lost my account was because I was on my phone, he was on another phone, and we were both in the same account. And the system caught it, thought it was a bot because it was too quick. And then he yelled at me and said it was my fault because he never took responsibility for anything. He just assumed and pointed fingers. And so when that happened, I literally felt like, and this was important, this was the biggest, most important lesson of all of them. I felt like I literally was cut off from the community. Not that I wasn't physically here, because back in the day, it used to be you were afraid of being outcast from society. Social media is the new society. So when they start talking about credit scores and systems like of that nature, they know they got people addicted to the point where they literally, there's been a high suicide and mental illness rates because of this. And especially over these past few years, people being silenced, told they can't speak about certain things. And so therefore they get deleted, disabled, and then they're recreating and having to start all over. And, you know, it's like this, and some people it's like a game. And other people it's like, I can't do this anymore. Some people just totally give up. I get it because I went through it. The first time I lost my account, and it had and my original account was my entire history back to 2007, when you had to be invited by somebody who was in Facebook, the original. And that started when I lived in Italy. So I had a whole history of my life, like documented throughout that time. And it felt like having my life stolen from me in a lot of ways, which it is. It's intellectual stealing of your information, of your pictures, and claiming it's theirs just because you posted it on their stuff. I mean, technically it's all a bunch of BS, but anyway. So I went through this this death of like, holy crap, I literally felt like I was disconnected. And I had to experience that to understand how addictive. And that was in the beginning. People now, they're spending their entire day. They can't put it down. They can't stop looking at it. They can't keep scrolling because it's a dopamine hit. And that's what addiction is. It's a reinforcement of a like, ooh, dopamine hit. Okay, I keep going. Oh, there's something and then you know what it's like. I don't have to tell you. And so when you get addicted to this cycle of constantly checking and this and that, and before, in the beginning, it was just a text message or a phone call. You know, now you got all this information. It's overload. Hyper sensitivity, hyper response, because now it's enforcing another trauma and it's going deeper to that wound, the original one. the five, wait a minute, connection, consistency, inconsistency, love, it's six. Spirituality and contribution. It only takes satisfying 3 of the human needs to constitute an addiction. Because if you are doing something repeatedly, you have to ask yourself, is this contributing to my life, or is it depleting? Is it sabotaging? Is it taking away from? Is it expanding or contracting? Is it affecting your relationships? Because that right there, you know, especially with some of the stuff out there in the internet world, the interweb, you've been caught in the web, the spider web. Remember when it used to be called web crawler? So we have to consider and be more mindful about why we're interacting with these things. I'm not saying don't do it, but own it so it doesn't own you. So I went through this. First time, second time, third time last year, and I lost the Instagram. But before that, in 2021, in January, I was blowing up on TikTok. And all of a sudden, I'm in the middle of a live video, and all I was doing was sharing my personal experience, especially when I was in the military. I have some pretty good stories. They'll go better in the book, though. And people showed up, and they're like, oh, I just went to go, you know, follow you, and it says your account doesn't exist anymore. And as soon as I signed out, that's when I got the, you're disabled. Not only was I disabled, but my device was disabled, meaning I couldn't even have the app on my phone. And I tried to appeal it. Pointless. Because, of course, there's no human. Just like Facebook, there's no human. And I was really kind of sad. I was like, that sucks. So I created another. I had 2 other accounts. But I got capped on the algorithm. What do they call that? A delimiter on cars that don't allow you to go over a certain speed. It's called a delimiter. Basically, the algorithm for my accounts was on a delimiter, meaning anytime I would get close to a certain number, even though it looked like I was gaining followers, they cut them off and it would keep going back down. So it never got over like 500. It was really bizarre, very bizarre. It wasn't even worth my time and energy. So I swore it off. I'm like, you know what? There's a reason. I'm probably being protected. It's all good. So I got off of there. And there's another app called 𝐶𝐿 that I forgot about until the other day. I opened it up a little while ago. I've got like 10,000 followers on there, and I haven't used it since probably November. There's so much out there. It's all distractions, though. So that's where I'm going back to. Here I am having a conversation with myself about how I can easily find things to distract myself. Whether it's, oh, I got to go eat something, or I got to go sweep up this or clean that, or I need to go brush my teeth or take a shower or go do something here or there. I can always find something to do. But you know, I've been doing all this stuff for years. And it's just what comes natural to me. And here I am having a conversation like, look at you. You're avoiding the thing you do all the time. How crazy is that? You don't want to sit down and do what you know you need to do. And I want to know, have you experienced this? Now we get the nodes in Aries. And it's like fire into my ass. I literally forced myself last night to do what I did. And I felt good about it in the end. I'm like, okay, stayed up all night. But that 3:33 in the morning is when I had the epiphany. It hit me. I'm like, oh, because of those stories around all those times I've had the rug pulled out from underneath me. People didn't support me when they promised to show up for me. I was like, I'm afraid that it's going to either happen again, or, as I know, once I get that ball rolling, because the universe always supports me, once I start and I get on that train, there ain't no slowing down and there ain't no going back. Am I going to be able to keep up with that? What a silly thing for me to think, but I had to be aware of it to be able to dissolve that illusion. Being in awareness of the fear, the thoughts that are running through your head is important. To dismiss it or try to act like it doesn't exist just allows it to persist. And it will be the one that runs the program. Why I speak about things the way I do. and I share this personal experience, that it will hopefully help someone else there too that also has struggled. It's not the end of the world. It's the acknowledgement of it that shifts it. It's the owning it so it doesn't own you. So while I'm sitting here going, you're afraid that you're not going to be able to keep up with all the demand of all the things that are going to start unfolding. It's okay. Even if you slip up or something happens, you have a little mistake there, you know, you're going to be supported. Everything's going to work out. The right people will find you. They always do. I'm not even worried about people showing up to be a part of my workshops, retreats, my women's circles. That's the least of my concerns. I'm just concerned that I can do it all to support it. That's what the story was. And then I sat down and I started doing the modules, and there's prompts and asking questions. And as I'm doing this, this is where the divine comedy started. So I've got my papers, I've got my outline, I've got like I said, I even brought this out. I'm like, okay, let me look at my background. What have I written about myself? And you know, it's even got the whole section around what are your gifts and what have you done and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, all the papers that I have laid out on my floor, all the answers are right there. And that's when I'm going, this isn't that challenging. It's not that difficult. You know what? You've already written it. It's already there. You've already done this. You're just consolidating it. You're just organizing it. You're putting it in a different form, a different package. You already know your mission statement. You already know what you do. I've always known. I've always known. Some of us came into this life knowing, and some people forgot. The key is in remembering, because we all have gifts that we came here to share. And it's selfish to withhold those gifts because somebody out there needs you to solve a problem for them. And it's most likely the same problem you solved for yourself. So everything I've experienced, everything of from all of my teachings, everything that I've learned has come from my personal experience. I only know to teach from my personal experience because I am an experiential learner. I go through the experience and I come back and I share it with you. I've been in computers. I have my computer science degree. I was in the Miss Maine Teen pageant. I went to Barbizon School of Modeling. I picked potatoes when I was younger. That was funny. I've run 2 marathons, my favorite cities, Paris and Florence. I was in the Air Force for over 10 years, then I went into government contracting, and I taught the systems that I used to work on. I installed and migrated systems. I worked in database administration, systems engineering, systems administration. I could tell you all sorts of things. One of my gifts is being resourceful, knowing where to look or who to ask, as opposed to trying to reinvent the wheel. That a lot of times, even in my computer world life, it was like, if somebody hadn't experienced it, I probably was the first one in some cases. There were a couple really interesting situations and scenarios. I'm like, okay, so I did this, and I've never heard of anybody else who's done this. And then I worked in Bratislava, and I taught the Slovaks how to use the emergency response systems, taking a picture, because in order to become a map, it has to be rectified. You have to take the picture, scan it in, map out the pixels, and coordinate them to the map coordinates in order for it to be a map. And you can watch some like different, if you ever watch Monkey Works, he has the whole, the mapping system where you can see where all the planes and you see all the, you know, it's all military lingo. Those are the systems I used to support. Kind of cool. And I forget about this stuff because I'm out of that world right now. But then I see it and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. I remember what that was like. You know, I worked on Sun OS. I remember when Microsoft came into the government, and it was like, It had so many back doors and so many what we call a kludge. They just laid Windows on top of the DOS network, DOS operating system, not network. Network is the how you get information across the interweb. So like all of this stuff that I know from a computer background has actually been very beneficial in my wellness arena, because I see how we're just like computers, how we're programmed through the five senses. Like if you listen to my videos, I take all of that knowledge and I package it together and I share it the way I do. I think it's actually pretty intuitive and pretty easy for understanding. And then I've been in the fitness world all my life, because when I was younger, I felt like I was fat. My mom and I had this conversation. She's like, oh, you were never fat. I'm like, it's not that I was, and I know I wasn't. It's just that I grew up with this sense that I was fat. I had like a body dysmorphia, but not like to the point, like, I'll be straight up. I tried to do the anorexia, bulimia thing where you eat your food and you throw it up. I was like, what the hell? I tried it like once and I was like, no, I couldn't do that. I like food. I don't like the aftertaste coming up the other way. So to me, I'm like, I'm just not that person. And for me, my stress relief is exercise, getting my body moving. I've always intuitively known that. Like, I'm a fire sign. So like when I get fired up and I get angry or upset, I don't want to take it out on somebody. That's not constructive. That's destructive. So I intuitively know to channel that energy. Breath work, yoga, walking. That's why Buddy was my little boo, because I would always go out on walks, and he loved that. Nature speaks to me. I grew up, in the country. The bees always find me. And just noticing symbols, signs, synchronicities, because I tune into me. And so it's easier to see. It's a reflection of me. Because what you see outside of yourself in every scenario has some aspect of you being painted out onto it. You see through you. What you see is a reflection of you. So I basically sat down, I answered all the paperwork, and I was having this crazy conversation with myself, like, wasn't so hard now, was it? Got the information, and it's right in front of your face. I swear to God, divine comedy, I got this, I'm laughing at myself. I'm like, geesh. And all it took was to get my butt sitting on the floor and pushing myself to do it. And sometimes you got to do that. You got to be your own accountability, but you got to call yourself out on your own BS. Not even the BS and the bullshit, but I'm talking your belief systems around why you're not doing what you need to be doing. And unlike myself, where I'm sharing this with you in hopes that this supports someone and wakes them up, wakes you up to some aspect in yourself that you are withholding, some gift in you that someone out there needs from you, that you're here to serve. I do this because I like to think that my personal experience inspires someone else. Because one of the things I've said for a long time is, in order to inspire others, I believe in authenticity and integrity. And the best way to align with that is to inspire by inspired action. So you inspire others through the way you live your life. You walk your talk. And then when people look at you, they're like, what's going on with that person? Like, what's she got? I want some of that. How many of you out there have been like, man, I got people around me flocking and like getting in my space. And this happens. I've had this since I was a child. In fact, my mom and my sisters, we used to joke about this. We literally would be at a store, and they have a pile of like stuff on sale. Not a lot of people. And then there'd be that one person that comes over and starts reaching for the thing that's in your hands. Not that there's not a huge pile there already, but they're trying to take it out of your hands. I kid you not. Or you're in the line to check out. There was no line. The three, me, my mom, and my two sisters, we're all standing in the line, and it's like all of a sudden we got people up our asses. Like, where the heck did these people come from? Yeah, free energy sharing groups. We all need this. The world would be a better place if more people stepped into their power by accepting their gifts and like reclaiming the suppression, reclaiming the shaming, because all of that was what fragmented us from being whole in who we are. Because the things we shame in ourselves, or we feel guilty about, or we don't acknowledge because we were shamed for them, are our biggest gifts in the end. Because that's the uniqueness, the authenticity that you're like going, I don't know what I'm here for. What's my purpose? And a lot of like the rebirthings and a lot of the processes that I take you through with Beyond Addiction or body awareness, it's like, it sparks that. It like brings that back out of you, wakes you up to you, because that's what it's meant to do. And here's the other thing, Kundalini yoga, so yoga of awareness through your personal experience. I'm not doing it for you. I'm just holding the space for you to do it for you. I am nobody's guru. I am just simply here to allow the essence of my presence to hold you in the space that you need to process and be closer to you, to inspire you to live your best life, to reclaim your power and redirect that in your life. To redirect, you are the director of your show, your movie. What a gift that you get to choose. You get to choose what you're going to be, how you're going to be. Even if you think something, you got to challenge the thought. Because most of the times it's an illusion. Just a story. I had a joke with my girlfriends. I'm like, it's a story. We just start laughing. We'll have a conversation and then they go into, that's a story. How about that story? This is the beauty, is we can check each other, call each other out with love and affection from a heart space. We're not here to put each other down. We're here to uplift each other and inspire each other. And sometimes your inspiration could just simply be you being you, and you don't realize it. That somebody thinks your life is better than theirs, and you're over there whining about how you're not happy with it. It's all about perspective. And why it is so important to surround yourself with different people that don't agree with you all the time. If we had people always agreeing with us, we'd never grow. But to see and hear other people's perspectives on things is so important. As I remember back to my stories around my life, I'm like, oh gosh, if it wasn't for the fact that this woman, Nancy, when I was working in Vicenza, Italy, and I was sharing with her how I had this kind of stalker guy from work, and I said, oh, Germans, I don't know if I could date a German, and blah, 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 because at that time, he was a little overwhelming and a little pushy, and it felt very uncomfortable to me. And I called him out on it. I said, I don't like the way you're making me feel. It makes me feel like you're trying to be in a relationship, and I didn't agree upon it. So I tell her this story, and she goes, you know, that's kind of closed-minded. Not every German's going to be the same. And I said, you know what? I appreciate you saying that to me. Like, that's a healthy conversation to have with people. You know, thank you for calling me out on that, because I hadn't considered that. And I know I didn't really mean it. I was just kind of babbling on. But thank you for putting it into perspective in a way that makes me check myself that it's an untrue story. See, there's another story. It's just a story you made around an experience you had. And then most of the times we're creating stories around everybody else's stuff and nowhere near what the real truth is. Again, truth is something you can feel. It's a gnosis. It's in your being. That's why the body's always tattletaling on the mind. So I accomplished quite a bit last night, and about 7 o'clock I decided to roll into bed. I'm like, okay, I need a little nap, and got back up around 10:30. But you know, it's sometimes we have to discipline ourselves. Nobody's going to do it for us. To be the best version of you, sometimes you got to work hard to stay on track and stay on your own back. Like, hello, McFly. I say this because I'm grateful I did it. I was kicking and screaming, and I was having my own little, you know, bratty temper tantrum, I was looking in the mirror like, come on, really? This is what you do. This is what you do. It's not rocket science. This is stuff that comes natural to you. So don't fight it, because somebody out there is waiting for it. And excited because they think, because at some point it's gonna solve someone's problems. It's gonna change the way people see things and experience their own lives. So some of the things that I came up with that I'll share, because ultimately I believe, and this is, I hold sacred space. You hear me when I start out my videos. I'm here to support, to uplift, inspire, and empower you to be the best version of you you're here and meant to be. Because I believe we all are here to do big things. Not anybody is better or less. That when I rise, you rise, and we should be rising together. Because that's how we change the vibration in the world. You want to see change in the world? Change yourself. But you got to take action, not think about it. It's not intellectual. It's an embodiment. First, you got to change your frequency, which is in the thoughts. You got to change the level of currency you're putting out there into the world. Because if you notice your thoughts, then you have an opportunity to change them. So you slow it down, you get conscious and aware. You master the breath. You master your breath by slowing down, becoming present, and observing. Sometimes that sucks. Some of the stuff that comes up we don't want to hear. But if you don't hear it, if you're not willing to see it, again, this is going to go back to the shit show. When you try to avoid it, that becomes the driver. It becomes the shit that everybody sees. Your shit shows. And that's why it becomes a shit show. You're the only one avoiding and denying it. And that's what makes it come back even stronger each time. It's like every time you push that ball under the water, you're imploding. That ball's exploding. And it's in your face. You're the one who's avoiding it, though. You can't avoid yourself. Everywhere you go, there you are. So it's time to be your bigger, bolder, beautiful self. I inspire gods and goddesses. And you got to know what that feels like. Because that's, again, you got to step into your power. I inspire gods and goddesses to reclaim their potent power and purpose. Because each and every one of us has purpose. And most of the times, it's the pain. It's the discomfort. It's what you've been avoiding that has the most significance in your life to carry forward some beautiful solution for someone out there. I'm tired. It's been a long day. It's time for me to go to bed. Yes, it is time for me to go to bed. So anyway, I hope, I really truly do. This video was mostly for me to just go put it all out there. Because the more I'm putting it out there, I'm hoping that it creates a ripple, affects some shift in your life. The only way change happens is if you choose you. Because when you decide to level up, you will glow up. It's an energy, a vibration, a frequency. And each of us, when we come together, we are coming together to unlock each other's codes with our frequent keys. Frequencies are frequent keys. It's just like the ciphers unlocking each other's codes. Haven't you noticed sometimes somebody shows up in your space, or you go to watch somebody and all of a sudden it's like you feel like you're channeling. You feel like all of a sudden everything's falling into place. That's what it's about. We just need to be more conscientious of others, but mostly with ourselves. Being responsible and taking accountability for our energy and what we bring and emit to others around us. You need to be like solid like a rock in yourself. Know thyself so well then nobody can take advantage or get one over on you. Because when you know yourself so well, you'll see through all the bullshit too. Because when you own it, it doesn't own you. And then you don't have to deal with shit shows. From my heart to you, on this Wednesday night, planet of Mercury, sweet dreams. Let me know in the comments, not just the chat, but let me know if anything on here resonated. What would you like me to talk more about? Would you be interested in going on a retreat with me to Italy or somewhere else? Women's circles, workshops, events, live, online. You let me know. Let me know. I need some feedback. Because if I don't get feedback, I don't know what to serve you. And I need your feedback to be able to support you as well. So, again, you be you. Literally, you be buzz around. Mwah, I love you.